Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of Around the Saloon. We have a very special guest with us tonight. As you can see, we had some scheduling mishaps, and we have our returning contestant, Mr. Dr. Boom himself, who is making his triumphant return, hoping to get his 7 points before he dips and returns maybe again next season. With us tonight, we have our I guess you would call him at this point our Saloon MVP because he's got the double hats, rocking the double hats. Mr. Corridon looking to get third win in a row, which I don't know if that's ever happened. I think 2 has been the max. Corridon, welcome back again.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. Well, I guess I got to defend undisputed against Diamond there 2 weeks ago. So, but I know Isocles, who's joining us, is gonna be shooting for me. So, and I mean Marty B's no slouch either. So even though there's only 2 other competitors, it's a stacked crowd.
It is a stacked crowd, especially because Marty B's feeling rejuvenated now that Wild is it's actually a game mode again. So I think he's just like prepped and ready to go for tonight. He's like, I'm gonna shoot my shit with some Wild, and we're gonna get started. I'm gonna get all these points right off the bat. You ready for this, Marty?
What can I say? We have a new expansion, so it's exciting times.
All right, and then hot off the bench. Nope, sorry, cold off the bench. Isocles, season 1 winner. Saw Corridon just making money moves, taking out season 2. I think you're in contention for season 2, but Corridon snuck out there with an extra win, and then sees that win streak going. Is like, nah, I ain't having any of that. It's gonna be season 3 for me. I gotta get you your hat too. Hold on, I got a nice little crown for you here. There we go.
I appreciate you doing that. I was gonna ask, because I know you do your host duties well. But sometimes it takes a little weak nudge to make sure everything's in order. So
my bad. I forgot. I just forgot. There you go. Right there. It's on your. It's not on your head, but it's in the corner. So
it works.
Your nice little Togwaggle season 1 crown. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
You rusty?
Absolutely. I've been chasing kids around for the last 3 months. So since the new one was born, so that's been fun. But I'm ready to go.
Well, it's exciting that we have a new THL member. You gotta train the little one up so they can join your team here in like 16 years.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that like him smashing the iPad can already beat Dande in the series, so we should be good.
It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much.
Really
Static Dr. Boom probably could. All right, well, we're just gonna get right into it. I'm sure I told Marty before we started. I said, question 1. Man, this question was written for you. We only have like one Wild question tonight, excluding our Wild THL question because we do have one of those. But I'm sure Marty has lots to say about it, so I'll just let him go first. I'll let him get everything off his chest here. Oh man, yeah. So, question numero uno. Marty B. We usually start at the top left. This is a Saloon first. We've never started not with the top left, but this is a special occasion.
It's okay. I'm gonna need to copy whatever he says.
This is a special occasion. So, Marty B, what kind of impact did the Demon Seed ban have for Wild? Say it with your heart, from your chest.
There's so much going on. Okay. The meta has opened up completely again. Before, when the Demon Seed was around, the amount of viable decks shrinks by a third. Okay, we had maybe 8-10 decks that you could actually hit like realistically, because the Demon Seed took a third of all the opponent's units. It was ridiculous. Either you won by turn 6, turn 7, turn 8, or you would lose to the Demon Seed. There was no chance. It was ridiculous how warping this deck was. And now, you can play whatever the hell you want. Whether it's good or bad, that's up for debate. But now we have actually slow decks again where you can kind of grind out opponents and you don't have to worry about losing on the spot by turn 8. So some of the things you can do, like you can play decks again. Um, you can play slower combo decks. You can still play the top decks from before, like Pirate Warrior and Odd Hunter. Okay, we're just seeing a lot of things that were viable before and disappeared from the meta, coming back, and people are happy again because they get to play whatever they want. They get that variety again. They're happy that they get that variety again. Yes, we lose a card. We lose kind of a new archetype, but realistically, Dark Lair Warlock is still playable, so people looking for that kind of gameplay can still play it. And overall, it's just a much more healthy state, allowing a lot of different strategies, which is what we really want. So take what you guys did in Standard and expand on it even more, and that's basically the state of Wild right now. So much better.
All right, I could feel the heart in that response. I think I even saw a single tear drop from your eye, being able to play your beloved game mode again. Yeah, I knew it.
You got me.
Let's go Corridon.
Yeah, I mean, the Demon Seed was probably guilty party number one, being changed in Standard and banned in Wild. I mean, getting rid of the Demon Seed probably opened up so many more decks. I think a lot of the decks that were played in the Wailing Caverns meta are going to be able to come back, but also it's going to open up a lot more quest line possibilities for Stormwind decks that might not have been given a shot. I know Pirate Warrior's getting a good shout right now. It's probably one of the top decks in Wild at the moment. I think it's just going to open up Wild a lot more. It's going to be able to test out a little more. You're not going to feel punished by not playing the absolute best deck on ladder and just feeling bad when you run into it. But I mean, I don't know if it switches it up enough. I think the Wild community just feels happy that they were heard, that their prayers were answered by the Blizzard lords, and I think it's a fun mode. I'm not a huge Wild person, but I know just from the community response on Twitter, on Reddit, and even Marty here just revitalized is it just goes to show what an unfortunate card it created for a lot of people. So yeah.
All right, Asicles.
It's interesting that I think Marty may have said it before the show started, but he basically referred to it's like a new expansion for Wild, because with United Stormwind, basically all you had was Demon Seed taking over and that completely warping the meta. And then what do? You either play it or you beat it, and that's it. So now with that gone, you can actually explore the different decks that were created by the release of the quest lines and other United Stormwind cards. I know Wild is a little bit slower sometimes in how it shifts. The power level is so much higher, so new cards don't always have immediate impact. I mean, Demon Seed notwithstanding. So it is still fun to have a new period of discovery that comes in, so that's good. But I wonder, what does Blizzard do with Wild long term? And it talked about once Demon Seed rotates out, changing it in some way so that it can be playable in Wild, so that they can sort of keep that mindset of Wild having your entire collection available to you. Now they've banned 2 cards. They've banned Stealer and they've banned the Demon Seed. So it's it's still basically your entire collection, but you're starting to see the cracks just ever so slightly of the foundation that is Wild. And I wonder what approach they take. Do they keep taking this line of thinking of just ban a card that is problematic? Or do they start to think about maybe other types of limited formats that aren't standard, but aren't the entire collection, but still gives players with their old collection something to do with it? And you see that a little bit in duels, but not really. So I'm curious if Blizzard will keep going down this road of banning problematic cards for a while, now that they've opened that door, or if they're going to come up with something new and interesting to revitalize the old collections, old sets, start bringing in something different than standard and Wild as they are today.
So kind of like something they did with standard with the core set.
Right. Yeah. Just take that approach with Wild. Maybe create a new format altogether. So it kind of comes down to resources. You got a lot going into Battlegrounds. You got a lot going into Mercenaries now. So do they really have people to dedicate to a potentially new format that might not gain traction? I mean, we saw Classic. It took off well at the beginning, but it sort of kind of tapered off in terms of interest. I think that was somewhat predictable because, all of us, at least most of us, were around for Classic and at least were able to play with those Classic cards. So it wasn't quite the shift that something new might be. But it'll be interesting to see if they feel it's worth the resources or if they'll just keep tweaking Wild and banning cards that are issues or if they look for something different.
right. Well, sticking with the theme of Warlock, it's actually kind of funny too. The two cards that we have bans in Wild are both Warlock cards. Is there any like specific reason that I'm missing why they both just happen to be Warlock cards, or are they just both happen to be Warlock cards?
Because mana cheating is good, and that's literally what
Okay.
it is. Stealer of Souls, Rod got changed. Demon Seed cheated out Giants for free. Like it's just it just Rod got changed for a reason. And it's the same reason that Demon Seed got banned and everything like that. Free mana is really good.
So, I think there's an easier way of explaining this. One of Warlock's core identities is utilizing its health to leverage mana cheating, right? And in Standard, you can control that because you don't have ways to negate those penalties. But in Wild, there are cards that negate those penalties a ton. So we saw this when Stealer was a thing, where you would make your hero immune, and then all your cards were basically for free because you would never get damaged. And with Seedlock, Crystallizer was basically a net zero, and it progressed your quest. So these cards that make the penalty non-existent create an environment where Warlock can take advantage of mana cheating without dealing with the penalties that it would deal with in Standard. And since no other class does that, Warlock becomes the problem.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because cards are created in Standard and balanced for Standard. And while Wild is a thought, it's not the primary reason for cards being created and balanced. So once a card is sort of created in an interesting and unique way, especially with like Warlock's identity of the health, you open up the entire collection that has all these different ways of utilizing your health in different ways, of being able to restore health in different ways that aren't in Standard, that aren't part of that balance equation when the card is created. And just, I think it just so happens that Warlock is like Marty said, the class that takes advantage of that the most. And then has the most resources available to it to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, Tamsin is insane. Being able to like shuffle through almost 8+8 with just using 4 mana, healing yourself, dealing with Soul Red Boars if you want to double it, if you want to use Touch, if you want to use Drain Soul, just the best way to reutilize cards and not really lose a bunch of value.
All right. Well, sticking with the theme of Warlock, this time with Standard. Warlock has been hit with how many nerfs now? I mean, some direct, some indirect. When you talk about the giant nerfs that just happened one after the other. But my question for the three of you, and we'll go in reverse order here, starting with Icicles. What kind of place does Warlock have after another round of nerfs?
It's definitely a lowered place. Before the nerfs, Warlock was sort of the top of the meta. You had decks that were designed to beat it, and then anything else Warlock did pretty well against. It's sort of, and it still does this to some extent, it essentially soft caps any sort of attrition strategy. So you won't see things like Barons, Control Priest, or you won't see Control Warrior where it just grinds you out with removal and hopes you fatigue, because there's always going to be that option where a Warlock player can come along and say, okay, fine, my fatigue hurts you, what are you going to do? So I think that still exists, and because those strategies aren't as viable as they have been in the past, Warlock's role in terms of controlling that is lessened. But I think there's going to be other ways for Warlock to jump up. I saw something on Twitter, it might have been Hat that posted this, about Zoo coming back with Giants. And basically just the idea of getting your Giants out as soon as possible. There's still not that many decks that can deal with that effectively. So, I think Warlock will always have that Zoo identity when it's viable and when decks don't have the best answers for it. And so you might see something like that come back. I mean, Giants are still a good card. We've talked about Mana Cheat a lot tonight. They've nerfed it a couple times because of how powerful it was. And right now I think it's in a decent place, but I think I can still kind of sneak in some sort of minion based aggressive strategy that can jump on people and still always has that you can't go to fatigue because fatigue hurts you instead of me. So I think it still has a place.
All right, Gordon.
I think Warlock's still pretty good. I think a lot of people got really scared when the Demon Sea got nerfed and Rod went to 4. I think that was just one type of Warlock. I actually played that Zoo Warlock tonight, and I went 6-2 with it. It's still an insane deck. You can still beat face decks that try to burn you. Um, you could still play Flesh Giants for 0. There's so many ways. You play Imps, you play the 2/5, you play Minari Mashra now. You've basically merged Skull with the Maiden, the 4 mana 5/5 rush. I mean, there's so many good ways to deal with aggressive boards with Soul Rend, and then you can come back with Bristleback. I mean, the core's still there. Now we just play more cards that deal damage. You could still, if you really want to take a more aggressive approach, you play Knife Fender. Like you could play Hyena again, like the zoo of like the very first zoo. There's so many cards that still do damage to the Warlock. Tamsin can still heal you and has some of the best defensive capabilities in the game. But there are still decks that will keep it in check. A mage will just not play anything and can just burn the Warlock down. Quest Hunter, another one right now. It's very similar to mage. Not really going to play a ton of minions to get drain and stuff. And really, if the Warlock's just going to keep damaging himself, the Quest Warlock can just kind of throw everything at face and just disrespect the board. Slade is a great way to win against giants, so I think it's in a good spot. I don't think it's over the top broken, but I don't think seeing it on HS replay at like the 7th or 8th best deck. I think that's incorrect. I think a lot of people got scared when GM stopped bringing it, but just this past week, a lot of GMs still brought it. It's still a really good deck, and I think it just has a little bit of a higher skill cap now.
All right, Marty.
All right. Well, we all agree that the fatigue version of Warlock is dead, right? Pretty sure that's the conclusion we can all come to here. But
Yes.
Like fatiguing, like literally drawing fatigue cards.
yeah, like the one where you would play Hand of Gul'dan and draw on fatigue to damage your
Oh
opponent.
yeah, okay. I
It's like a
mean,
pseudo- okay.
it's possible. You can still do it with the zoo, but it's not my turn.
You can.
Sorry.
That version is like strictly dead. The strictly combo one with like armor vendors and all that. So we're
Yeah.
focusing on the giant. And if anyone listens to the VS podcast and the early stats on that, then you'll know that Warlock is still showing tier 1 potential.
Tier 1. Okay.
So, yeah, tier 1. So it's not going to be like just a meta player. No, it could still define the meta as a tier 1 deck. And not only does that mean that they didn't over nerf the deck, but it also means that they were successful in opening up the meta and bringing out a bunch of different things while still keeping Warlock powerful. Okay, so this is still going to be a defining deck where we're going to see it a lot in THL, in all the series really. Wild notwithstanding, because this isn't really a wild question. And I think we're going to see a lot more adjustments too. I don't think we'll see a lot of Zoo, but we're still going to see a lot of the hand lock versions. And people are going to realize and start teching for it once again. And we'll see even other classes like Warrior probably start to fall in things like Legacy and Pro because Warlock is Warlock, and these classes don't really have ways of dealing with it. So I think that's where I stand with this.
All right. I think good point said earlier, like right at the start of this question. Not a lot of decks right now just have a way to deal with these giants. So if you're a deck that can just put down big old 8/8s before by like turn 5, then oh well. All right. So let's transition into the aftermath of these nerfs and these changes, because we had 14 changes, nerfs and buffs, and it just completely shook up the entirety of the meta. So with your standard like tier 1 decks we normally see, like your aggro druid, your your face hunter, all those like those decks we all expected to kind of rise in popularity and strength. What I want to hear from you, starting with Corridon, is what sleeper decks could we see rise up as the meta starts to settle? Because I'm still running into decks I haven't really seen, and I'm being kind of like overwhelmed by some of these ones. I'm like, what the fuck is this shit?
Yeah,
So,
no, I think you. So I know Quest Hunter is already being played. You know, Pirate Warrior, the big like, hey, we buff this, go play this now. Quest Hunter didn't really get a buff. It kind of people were trying to play the selective breeder version and just like filter out venomous scorpions constantly. It's kind of settled down, but I really think that with the mini set coming out, that a beast hunter is going to be extremely viable. I've seen a lot of really interesting initiative on the Beast Hunter deck where it's like pulling Wolpertingers and just constantly playing Wolpertingers. Just never running out of them. Playing, one mana 6/6 for two, so you got 1 mana 12/12s, or even doing it with the encumbered pack mule. Every time you draw it, you double it in your hand, and sometimes Scavenger's Ingenuity works with it. The breeder works with it, as well as the I can't even think of the name of it, but the one that usually pulls Rhino. When you're not pulling Rhino or putting Rhino in a deck for Hunter, I think it really shows which way that deck can go and the viability that it's going to have in the meta. Um, they made these buffs literally saying the mini set is going to make things happen. I think they need to be extremely careful with the mini set because Pirate Warrior is already good. It's on the kind of the tier of if it gets anything like a direct damage spell, anything that can overtop your opponent. So I really feel like that's what it's missing right now, and what it's struggling with is anything that can go over the top and just straight up kill you, because you can get them to a point where you run out of weapons, and the Juggernaut gives you bulwark when you need to swing, and there's a very very finite place where Pirate Warrior is, and we don't really want to see. I don't want to see personally. I don't know anyone else. Aggro decks take over again. It's just I feel like it's just not a fun meta when there's aggro decks all the time.
I feel you there. Marty.
All right. So the question is, what sleeper decks could we see rise up as the metal citadel? It's not what we're going to be seeing with the mini set. As we know, the mini set was pushed back to late October. Mercenary.
Correct.
So with that in mind, this meta right now kind of feels like Barons in a way, where you have a lot of decks from them returning and being good when they were pushed in the meta by a lot of the stuff from United Stormwind. So I want to talk about two decks that I think are sleeper right now. One more from the Barons era, and one from now. And we'll start with the Barons one. I think Clown Druid has a lot of potential right now. Yeah. Right now the fastest aggro deck is Aggro Druid, and don't get me wrong, it's really good, but it doesn't have that burst that other decks had before. So the Druid can stall a bit and kind of high roll into the Guardian Animals and Clown turns. And because we don't have ways of dealing with really big minions right now, as we see with Warrior being a very big player in the meta, and stuff like Libram Paladin playing Librams of Hope again, and those sticking, Clowns do really well. So that's a deck that a lot of people aren't really paying attention to, that I think, especially in closed deckless series, we'll see much more of in the coming weeks. The other deck I want to point out is something that didn't really get much attention for the last month or so, and that's Questline. So with the rise in Libram Paladin, Rogue is poised to come on top as well. It just absolutely dumpsters anything that tries to go tall because it has such clean removal tools. And the SI7 package just dumpsters anything that goes tall like that. So Big Warrior and Libram Paladin Shovel. Okay, and the thing is, since you can give your Scab stealth, that means the mage also can have a bit of a problem, because you just stealth it up, give it +2 attack, and next thing you know, they're taking 18 damage the following turn. So it's extremely powerful right now. Has good tools, given the fact that Warlock is not really around, and neither is Shaman. And therefore, it's a meta contender that a lot of people haven't really picked up on. Everyone's focused on Garrote Road, but really, this is the deck that people should watch out.
All right. I actually played again. I played Pirate Warrior against a Questline Rogue, and they sent my Rikara back to my hands, and so I got a second ship. I never thought I would have 2 ships on the field at one time, but it was fun. I think they definitely. So I was way ahead. So I think they definitely did it just for the meme. But like, I had 2 ships down, and it was fun. Icicles.
That does sound fun. I feel like Marty's been hacking into my Blizzard client, seeing what decks I've been bringing all along, because Clown Druid and Quest Rogue, yeah, those have been staples for me in my Hero and Legacy journeys this season with mixed results. But definitely those decks are sleepers. I'll give them credit for that. So my 2 here, you mentioned one of them was Big Warrior. We've talked about Pirate Warrior, and that one was the one that got all the attention. But with things slowing down a little bit, Big Warrior has definitely come on in a big way. And it's a fun deck to play. You've got that 6/2 grunt that basically is just there as cannon fodder. You can provoke things into attacking it. It's able to accelerate its curve beyond just the commencement from Skullman. So I think Big Warrior's back on the rise, which kind of leads to Clown Druid being good again. The other one that we got to keep an eye on is Questline Priest. With Warlock and its fatigue going away, and Quest Shaman not really kicking up. Those are the 2 decks that just absolutely crushed Questline Priest. But someone's going to figure out some way to make that Quest Priest work. If decks don't have ways of closing out games on their own, beyond like the board decks aren't going to do as well. Big Warriors aren't going to do as well. Things like that. Questline Priest might be able to find a way to pick the right control tools and get back in the game. And put control back in front of Priest instead of this aggro Shadow Priest we've been dealing with for so long, which actually I do like a lot. But we got to get Priest back to its roots. We got to get some good old-fashioned 20-turn games going again.
It's actually really funny you bring that up because we're going to talk about Priest here in a couple of questions. Well, let's move into our Face or Trade rounds. As a reminder, Face or Trade, I will give a statement and they will say face if they agree or trade if they disagree. We have 2 questions about Standard. One with Warrior, one with Priest, and then we have 1 question about THL, and it deals with Legacy Series. So, face or trade? Let's start off with Corden. Face or trade? Warrior has a tier 1 deck.
Yeah, face. I agree with that. I think any aggro deck at the moment right now is just going to punish people who are trying to manipulate the meta, try and play slower decks. You want to play Clown Druid, well, I'm just going to kill you with Pirates. That's really how it is. The Juggernaut is infinite value. Aggro decks are just good. There's a reason why Face Hunter, every expansion comes back, because it's the best aggro deck. There's a reason why Pirate Warrior is at the top of the HS statistics right now. Not only is it being played a ton, but it's actually also just performing very well. So when you see something like that, you see, Aggro Druid being played a ton, still having 50. This is over a 50% win rate, 31,000 games on a 55% win rate. It's a tier 1 deck. It's just going to get better as people refine it. There's multiple builds for it right now. Some people play a little bit more control. Some people play a little more removal. But straight up aggro is probably the best way to play this questline, Warrior. And I think it's just absolutely insane. It's just going to get better from this point on.
All right. Icicles.
So I'm also going face, but with a different deck. I think Cordon was correct on the first part and possibly incorrect on the second part. I played a lot of Pirate Warrior. I like it a lot. But according to HS Replay, it wasn't top 1,000 since the balance patch. It is a 49% win rate deck, which puts it squarely in tier 3. The deck that I talked about a minute ago, Big Warrior, is the one that seems to be poised to take over the meta, or at least require more answers. I think Pirate Warrior kind of falls into a slightly lesser version of Aggro Druid, or even the old Aggro Shadow Priest. The decks are kind of already tailored to beat. Granted, the quest gives it a little more longevity, but for the most part, it's still an aggro deck. It's still going to run into some of those same issues. But Big Warrior, I think, is the one that rises up and ends up being sort of that meta tyrant, or at least one that needs to be thought about when constructing decks and deciding what you're going to play on ladder. So face, but for Big Warrior.
Okay, all right. And Marty.
Yeah, I'm going to go face, and I'm going to say it's only temporary right now. I think Isocles is right that Big Warrior is Warrior's tier 1 deck, even right now. But I don't think it stays in tier 1 for the rest of the time until the mini set. I actually think that because we talked about Warlock being potentially tier 1 and that rising over the next few weeks, that Warlock is going to start pushing down Warrior and Big Warrior will settle in tier 2 later on, and that'll be the best warrior deck. Now, in THL in particular, specifically around the pro scene, I see people bringing Control Warrior a lot more. I think that's going to be the warrior deck of choice, and I think it's also going to be doing very well there. I think that will have the best chance. I don't know if it's going to have tier 1 win rate in there. We have no way of looking, really. But I do think it'll be much better than what is the current tier 1 deck on ladder right across all ranks.
All right. So it seems like a consensus yes, and for 3 completely different types of warrior. So I guess that tells you about potentially the current state of warrior. Let's move from warrior, everybody's favorite class, into everybody's least favorite class, priest. Let's start off with Marty. Marty hasn't started since the first question. Marty, face or trade? Priest dead.
Trade.
Okay.
Trade. Easy trade. So, Aggro Priest is probably going to be sort of dead the way Face Hunter was dead before. And the fact that Face Hunter was just a strictly worse Aggro Priest. Now, Aggro Priest is a strictly worse Face Hunter. But that's still viable on ladder. Okay, that's going to be like tier 3. And as some of us have spoken about before, you have Quest Priest, and I've even been seeing Control Priest show up. And I think there's still a lot to be experimented on the class. And a lot of people are going to start having success with it, depending on the kinds of decks they hit, and as the meta ebbs and flows. And because of that, someone's going to find something. And we're going to see Priest a lot more in THL. And it's not just going to be Aggro Priest either.
Okay. Gordon.
Face. It's pretty dead. Quest Priest just isn't good right now. It doesn't have the support. You can go as slow as you want, but there's still going to be faster decks. That's just the way it is. It takes way too long. The quest line is very difficult. It's very finite, the amount of things you actually have to play. Playing a tier, like a 7-cost thing is very difficult for Priest. Like, you run Elec, and that's pretty much it. And that's just, cheated out by the Alara. And I don't think Aggro Priest is really coming back at all. We just literally heard both these guys talk about how, Control's coming back. Marty said, Control Warrior's coming back. It's just going to dominate. You've got stuff playing, Paladin playing Librams of Justice with, lifesteal AoE spells now with City Tack. So everything pretty much is getting more and more ways to heal up, just to get out of that finite amount of damage that Priest was always able to. Lucy is gone. They can't just lock your board anymore. It just doesn't happen. There's a lot more counterplay to Priest. Not only that, in this current GM that just passed, out of all 3 areas, 3 people brought Priest. That was it. And APAC brought 0. No Priest brought whatsoever. There were 2 in Americas and 1 in Europe. So I mean, the GMs typically have a feel of what's the most powerful stuff if we're talking about even open deck lists, but in a tournament setting and a conquest setting, with Priest just not being there, I just don't see it ever coming back until it gets, it needs a lot of help. And I think everything else is going to get way more before Priest ever gets looked at again.
All right. Iciclis.
It's not everyone's least favorite class. I like Priest. It's fun.
Right. Well, mine's
my heart says trade, but my head says face. I talked a little bit about Questline Priest as a sleeper deck. Unfortunately, right now it's still sleeping. Anything else for Priest right now is dead. I don't think Aggro Shadow Priest has a place anymore. I think it was as powerful as it was, largely due to Elucia being able to just close out board states where it was in a dominant position. And I think you take that away, and it just gives other decks that were close to handling it the ability to handle it in more situations. And Control Priest, I don't think it comes back unless it's the quest. And until someone figures out how to make Questline Priest work, how to merge the control aspects of it while still progressing the quest to a relatively quick conclusion for Priest, Priest is still going to be in a tough spot. So I wish I had more time to be that person to figure out the questline Priest, but realistically, that's not my game anymore. I'm not I was never that great of a deck creator, but it's just I gotta leave it to other people now, and I don't think anyone really. I think there are too many people that Priest is their least favorite class, so the work that's required to figure out how to make that happen it probably isn't going to be there. Like Gordon said with the GM, will not bring in Priest. It's in a tough spot. I think there's potential for Questline Priest, but it would take a lot of work to realize that potential. So, fortunately, I think the head wins, and I think we go face here.
All right. We have one final question in Face or Trade, and then we're going to cut one person off of the screen just for a little bit. And our last question is going to talk about Legacy. So, I try not to talk about my own teams very much, but, okay, that's a lie. I do talk about more of it. But the Legacy team that I just happened to be on was consistently ranked in the bottom 2 or 3 of the preseason standings, and now we are currently in 4th place of the Red Conference. So, take that as you will. But Sicklies, I guess we can start with you, since you are currently in last by only like 1 point, though. So, face or trade? Sicklies, wait, don't you do the podcast too?
Well, I'm supposed to do the podcast. It's sort of been on a extended hiatus. I threw one in the middle of the season to talk about Hero and Pro, but I haven't gone back to Legacy.
Okay,
okay. I'm actually... We'll talk about it in a second, but yeah.
All right, sure, go for it. I mean, you did the preseason one where we were at the bottom. So, face or trade. Sicklies, the cooler makes playoffs in the tough Red Conference.
Oh my god!
You don't have to suck up. Be honest.
No. Here's the problem. If y'all make it, my team's not making it because it's because y'all play Seat Guidance this week, and then you play Chaos Theory next week. And like you mentioned, Red is really competitive, really close. And so I think it's going to come down to that last week. So the problem is, as confident as I am in my team, and I think 1 to 5, like I would go my team over yours, just because that's just how I am as a captain. Problem is, Chaos Theory is fucking cursed. We can't make the playoffs, so it doesn't matter. So y'all are gonna win, and you're gonna make it. So I have to go face the cooler makes the playoffs in the top Red Conference because you get Chaos Theory and because we're cursed. So I'm just, what are you gonna do? But it should be really close. It should be a fun matchup. I'm really looking forward to it. Maybe you can get it on stream. I don't know if you want to be in the stream game. Kodamora definitely has been. That is a 5 seed matchup for the ages to get y'all head to head. So I'm looking forward to that one, streamed or not. If that ends up being the match to decide the series, then I'm here for it with my popcorn. It should be a good one. But unfortunately, just because of past history, I think it predicts future performance. So y'all, congratulations, y'all make the playoffs.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Corden.
Face. I do. I think you guys make the playoffs for a few reasons. Being that you're getting the wins out of the seeds that really matter. The 4 and 5 are performing very well. I know when you and I played in Legacy, you were actually the 4 seed, and only dropping in 1 loss shows that Snipe Hunter coming up to the 4 seed is going to do very well. And you getting in a 5 and 2 in the 4 seed, just dropping to the 5, I'm not going to say it's not as competitive, but there's definitely a skill gap or a difference between a 4 and a 5 seed within Legacy. It's just the way that the PR system works. I also think there's a lot of, I think you have 2 rookies, maybe 3 rookies on the team. People are still probably not sure how they play. Someone comes up against me, you, Isocles, Marty. We're known. They know our style. They know what we like to play. They know, the ins and outs of how we're going to bring decks, and, they can kind of try and target something if that's the case. It's not as easy with having 3 rookies on your team, especially having such a meta that shifted. You can look back in the weeks, but week 4 and 5 don't matter with week 6 and 7 because decks are different. Warlock's gone, Shaman's gone. Maybe your guys still like them. Maybe your people still play them. Maybe they're the best control warrior, NJO level control warrior. We don't know this stuff about them. So that's why I think you are slotted for playoff hopes. And I think, it was kind of like STD was last, not to shout out my own team, but nobody looked at us for a very long time, and we went all the way to the finals until we were in the finals and lost it. I think you guys are in a very similar position, and I expect you to make it very far.
Marty.
So I'm gonna have to do what no one likes to do and go trade. And the reason why is because I'm looking at the standings right now, and the Cooler Justin are tied for the playoffs with Chaos Theory, and they have F2 White right behind them. Okay, ignoring team record aside and individual player talents, because every single one of these teams, have good players, both known and unknown, and it could go either way just by looking at individual. But just looking at the average strength of each schedule, so far the Cooler Justin has had the easiest schedule in the Red Conference, and that alone means they're going to have the hardest schedule going forward, which means they have to face top teams. And because they're facing top teams, they're less likely to get as many points as Chaos Theory and F2 White, which have had harder schedules so far. And I see them falling as a result. I think the race is really close, but because they have to face tougher teams later on compared to the competition, those points are going to be much more important, and they're going to have to work that much hard to get them. And I don't know if that's going to be even enough by themselves, or by itself, I should say. So I have them just barely missing.
All right. Well, with that, we have to. He came back from his short-lived break off season and didn't make it to the finals. What do you?
Hey, let me just say real quick. I didn't have your team all at the bottom. Y'all were a rare team, not a golden common. So just want to put that out there.
Okay.
You weren't
Okay.
you weren't my last ranked team.
Okay.
Just saying. Goodbye.
We'll see Icicles here again really soon. We only have 2 questions here in our duel round. So with our duel round, we have 2 questions. Marty B and Corden will go head to head, starting with Marty B first because he is in the lead currently. Those points will reset, but well, you know what? I'll ask Marty. Marty, you want to go first or last?
This time.
What'd you say?
Let's go second this time.
All right.
I went first
So we'll start with
round,
Corden. We'll start with Corden then, and then Marty will go first in the last question. So it's time to duel. Let's get these points back to 0. And Corden, we're starting with you and your least favorite topic of the night. He knows what's coming up. I didn't want to spell it all out because it's a very, very long name, but we're talking about Wild and a tough conference. I think it's the Green Conference. I'm blanking on which conference this is.
It is, yeah.
Green Conference. Green Conference, pretty tough, pretty close. One team is going to just get edged out, making into the top 4 here. So, Corden, will Owlcome make the playoffs in the end?
Oh, that sentence pained me.
I know.
Just hearing you say
it's horrible, but it's better than reading it all off.
You're very true. No. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. Very similar to what we just saw with the Cooler. They have a very easy average opponent strength going forward. To this point, I think they have one of the easier ones that we've seen, other than Hair Club. But Hair Club is actually somebody they're going to have to beat, the undefeated Hair Club. And then right after that, they're going to have to take on, let me see here, they'll have Hair Club, and then they have APM, the Aussies, who have been dominant over in the Brown series, so a crossover there. I don't see them making it just based off of that fact. They've been playing decently enough, but being in a cusp right now, you've got a 1-6 Geranium, which is it's not characteristic of Geranium, but it does show that you haven't been finding the points when you need them. And I just think going forward, there's too many, extremely tough opponents. They gotta, maybe they can hand Hair Club their first loss. I don't see it happening, and I don't see APM dropping the ball with them either. Even coming in, they need to have 2 really, really strong outings here because mad scientists have an easier one going forward, and so do meta droolers, both with some of the hardest opponent strengths coming into easier 2 weeks of the wild meta.
All right, Barty B.
All right, so Gordon, you're missing one key aspect.
Oh.
There's 14 teams in Wild, and that means the top 3 teams in each conference make it, and then the next 2 highest point earners in the entire series get in. And right now, Outcome is in that threshold. So they are in the final wild card slot right now. And do you know what their point gap is between them and the next teams? 6 points. Okay, 6 points is not easy to overcome. And just looking at this right now, the Pog merchants, who are at 95 points, are had an easier schedule than them. So I think that they can still make it. I think that even with 2 losses, they can make the playoffs as long as they get enough points. If they can keep it up and gain just enough with 2 points here and there and maybe get a win or 2 each week, then they'll make playoffs in the final spot and upset 2 teams that made the playoffs last season. Okay, these guys were slept on. Everyone thought that they were going to be one of the bottom 2 teams. Really, everyone was calling green the free conference. Even I was. And all of a sudden, now 5 teams are above in green conference compared to 3 teams in brown conference. The 1 seed that everyone's really competing for is the 3 seed in the brown conference, because that's where Nofin 2 sits at 95 points, tied with the Pogmer. So I really don't think Outcome is out of the playoff picture at all. I don't think they're going to have a hard time getting in either. I genuinely see them getting in, and sure, they might have a first round out because they're going to be playing against the top team. Getting the playoffs with a team like that after being told that they're probably going to be bottom feeders is a huge accomplishment.
All right. We have one final question. We'll be starting with Marty B for this final question. And this final question is Hero Series. And this is not about one specific team, but we talk about this every single stinking season. And it's always the topic of, is Hero now the closest it's ever been? And it's a discussion that literally we have every single season. And every single season it's like, yes, Hero this season is closer than it was last season. And then we just keep having the same discussion. So, Marty, Hero, 2 weeks left. 2 weeks left. Who takes first place?
Okay, well, I'm going to have to shut out my F2L guys and say that they're going to get first place.
Okay.
Not because I'm really biased, but just looking at the team makeup. Like, this was a team made to go all the way. Okay, you don't have a team with Nice Jewish Owl in the 4 seed unless you're really planning on going far. Right? Just from top to bottom. And you know the craziest part? Neji Boston, the guy who has the highest PR in THL, I believe in Legacy, he's almost at 1,000 now. He was checking recently. He's 1-5, or he was 1-5. And he's actually having his slack picked up by Dr. Fish in the 5 seed, who's just been insane. Okay, I think he's up to 120 PR after starting at sub 50 at the beginning of the season. So it's absolutely crazy that everyone is just firing off on all cylinders. Now, you were talking about how we always ask every season if this is the closest series ever.
Yeah.
And I don't think this season is it, believe it or not. Just looking at the point gaps, okay, there's not so much of a playoff race in the bottoming. Bolner Jams 03 has a 5-point lead over the next team. And then you have no pros here below anyone playing Maestro at 95 points. And then there's a huge drop to 88 points. So there isn't really much of a playoff race going on at the bubble as there was in previous season. Last season especially. I remember at this point we had like 4 or 5 teams in the running. No one was eliminated even going into the final week. It was honestly insane. And this season we're just not seeing that. It doesn't make it any less exciting. I think there's a lot of teams and we see, F2L Black can't even get away from any of their teams. And the best record here is what, 5-2 at Diamond, and they're not in first place either. So there's a lot of parity. But to call it close and really competitive more than previous seasons, I don't think that's doing the Hero Series justice.
Okay. Gordon, take us home.
I mean, I'd be doing myself and my fellow combatant Isocles a disservice if I didn't say Dad Legend's taken number one. Marty touched on Fish doing extremely well on the 5 seed. You got to look at Dad Legend. Starlax's playing in the 2 as a 6-1, and I mean, I got to shout myself out. I'm playing amazing as well as a 6-1 in the 3 seed. I'm just gonna give myself one of these. We've got Dart and Risen. I mean, Dart's been the 5 for the whole time, and even Dart struggling in the 5. You might see Neji Boston at the top, but Dart in the 5 is still the same cheat code that he's always been. Sitting at a 3 and 4, same with Risen sitting at 3 and 4. It's just, we're looking extremely good. Not only that is because all of our wins, every single win we've had 4 of them, have been 20-point games, 20-point weeks, every single one. Whereas when you look across the board, F2L, they've only had 2 20-point weeks. Diamond has had 0. There's been no 20-point weeks at a Diamond. They're starting to fall off a little bit, and it's going to be coming down to the closeness. We do have this week left, and then we have 2 more after this one. And in those 2 weeks, all of these top teams are playing each other. It's going to come down to the wire. So maybe it's not the absolute toughest it's ever been, whereas getting into the playoffs, but getting the first and the second seed is going to be insane because Dad Legend has to play F2L. Dad Legend has to play Diamond after that. And, I mean, we all have to play each other. That's just the way it's going to be going down. If you look at the average opponent strength, we do have the lower one, but the tear that we've been on lately is just it's going to look really good coming down to the wire of it. Even looking down the list at the playoff teams, Skirt is coming back. Bands has been making an insane year themselves. Nobody is counting out. You can't count APM out. They've been playing great over every single series, every single team. Seeing the point differential, as Marty said, it is a little bit hectic, but Boulder Jams going forward has a bit of a difficult season. They've got Diamond, they've got F2L Black, and then they've got Snakes on a campaign right after that. There is definitely a world that they slip up a little bit as they came off to a great start. They slipped down, and APM's right there with a little bit of an easier schedule going forward, and is able to snag it up. So I think it's definitely going to be a very close finish in this one.
All right. Always got to vote for yourself. What kind of teammate would you be if you didn't, right? We have a winner.
This is rigged.
How's it rigged?
I don't know.
Marty B, have you won before?
I have.
Okay.
I actually didn't come here expecting I'd win tonight.
Well, you should always come expecting you're gonna win, right?
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
I mean,
I've been on for a while. Thought I'd show my face. Here I am.
Yeah, exactly. We started off with a wild question, so it put him in the right mindset. No, prep is correct. Prep. Yep. So Marty, you have the floor. Anything you want to say before I send us home?
Yeah, I know I haven't been on here for a while, but I know that Mako does a really good job with this. He comes up with a lot of questions, and I'm really glad that we have many one days in between so that Mako has more time to have these questions spread out. I just want to shout out, this has been a great format. It's been a really good idea. The last season or two that we've, 2-3 seasons that we've had this now. It's done really well, so great job, Mako. Shout out to you. And thanks for this.
Yeah,
right,
well,
I'm done shilling now.
That's fine. I enjoy doing it. Yeah, I'm so glad we do every other week because I felt so bad having to cancel every other week basically for school stuff. So this is a much better setup. With that though, today we announced not captains period, but applications for captains, and I sent out emails to all the current captains asking if they are returning or not. So if you are wanting to captain next season, make sure you take a look at that form that was in the announcements and apply to captain for whatever series you're wanting to captain in. If you are wanting to return to captaining next season, you're captaining this season, then just respond to the email. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Or if not, then respond and say you're not gonna. It just saves us the having to track you down in a month and having to like spam ping you because we haven't gotten anything. So, but yeah, tomorrow night we will have Hearth Center, and then wait, right? Do I have that right? I always get those mixed up. Yes, and then Wednesday we will have Tavern Talk, both at 9:00, and then we have match streams throughout the rest of the week. Gordon, and you do one of these, right?
I do Friday streams, yeah.
Friday streams. Sicklies, you do one too, am I correct? No?
Not anymore. Nope.
Not anymore.
No time.
Okay, that's right. Marty B, you do the Wild Show?
Yes, we do that on Thursdays, 6 p.m. Eastern. We try to get it a little earlier so that the people in the EU can also watch, but it's always a good time. It's a bit more lax compared to the other shows. Best way to explain it is if you're in the WoW community, there's a lot more shit posts. Shout out Rice Bowl because he knows all the shit posts. But it's a good time. Definitely stop by and just say hi and have a good time.
How anticipated would you say this Wild and Out is going to be, given like having a whole week of no Demon Seed in Wild?
It's gonna be a really good time. There have been a lot of different things brought, and there's a lot to discuss.
It's
gonna be a lot of fun.
Is it gonna be a bit of a party? Are you gonna have like streamers and party hats? Is it gonna be a celebration going on Thursday if I show up?
I mean, I'm not saying that we're gonna have things that I can't say here, like powdered sugar maybe. And,
okay.
Hired
Yeah.
party dancers
Yeah.
and people that can have a good time with at parties, but
Okay.
that may or may not happen.
All right. Well, tune in Thursday to see if the THL Twitch channel gets banned or not on Twitch. With that, we will be back in 2 weeks. Next Monday, there will be a Maniac Monday. I swear to God, I forget the name of that Monday tournament every single Monday. There'll be a Maniac Monday. I do not know the Ducharmo has like the schedule posted somewhere if you want to look for that for what the tournament's going to be about. But he will post about it in the next day or so, anyways. I think it might be a Wild Blood. I'm not 100% sure.
Wild last
It
year
is
was standing.
Wild LHS. All right. Is it best of 3 or best of 5?
3.
Best of 3, so
All right.
it's a total clown fiesta.
All right. Best of 3, Wild LHS, no Demon Seed. Let's go next Monday. Sign up for that. We will be back in 2 Mondays from now.
One sec.
What's that? All right.
B-
Gordon, last
sorry.
thing, we're heading out.
Sorry, BG's playoffs are starting Fridays and Sundays, so tune into those shows. Top 4 have been solidified. Somebody missed out by 0.2. Dondaith actually slid in by a 0.2.
Rigged.
As is classic fashion. So
Rigged.
definitely tune in. It's a 2-week thing. So when you see us again, it'll be over actually. So probably a good thing to come find out on that next 2 weeks. But yeah, tune in. It's gonna be awesome.
All right. Making me look bad because I pay no attention to the BG series and didn't know we were entering playoffs. All right. Well, with that, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a great rest of your night. Have a great rest of your week, and have a great next week. And we'll see you then. Peace out.